I want to explain what's going on between Business Central and NAV 2016, but it is a little hard to wrap your head around. So I'm going to explain it with an Excel sheet because it'll be a lot easier to understand. So in NAV 2016, this would be an example of a table like the sales header table. And I've got many fewer columns than are actually in the sales header table. But what I've done is I've highlighted in blue what are called the key columns. Those are the columns that define the rows. And in green, the regular columns. And so if you were to buy NAV normally, what you would see is you would not see these two. You would only see this. This is NAV out of the box without anything added to it. And if you ask somebody to do customizations in previous versions, then in any previous version, this is the only way to do it, you would add the fields and the fields would become part of the SQL database. So if you went in and you actually looked at the data, this is what you saw. If you were to upgrade from NAV 2016 to 2017, what you would do is you would add these two fields in 2017 and then you'd run the upgrade and NAV has magic tools in it that copy all the fields in. In Business Central, Microsoft, well, even before that, Microsoft realized this was a really, really big problem because it prevents people from upgrading unless they can actually make code changes in the database. Because you have to make code changes to add these to your future version. So if you had NAV 2017, and in NAV 2017, your sales header looked like this, you'd have to hire a programmer to go in and add these two fields, or you couldn't upgrade. And that's before you copy the data. So the fields had to be added. But in Business Central, they stopped that. So in Business Central, they actually require you to delete these fields. And what you do is you end up with this. So in Business Central, you do your conversion and you have this. So your fields, your custom fields are gone. They're just deleted from the system. They don't exist. And then you are required to create a new table. And it would look something like this. This is done sort of automatically in the background by the extension. And the new table is sales header. And then it has this 40 character, I just sort of simulated one, but this is supposed to be 40 character alphanumeric code, which is called an extension ID. And it would have the same two key fields. So the two blue fields here, I'll make them like a slightly different orange. Maybe I'll make them like yellow. These two fields and these two blue fields are exactly the same. And for every field in the main header table, there will be one in the table with the weird extended name on it. And all of the green fields, all the standard of the box fields, they will not be there. And you must rename the fields with a prefix because otherwise you run the risk of somebody else deciding to do the same thing. And because nobody can see this, like this is invisible when you're programming. In the old days when I was programming in the database. And so if I came and I tried to add another quote status, the system would blow up and say, you can't add another quote status. There's already something called quote status. And if Microsoft tried to add quote status, you'd really be messed because you put one in called quote status. So what Microsoft now requires in Business Central is that all new fields have a prefix in front of them. We use SBR because we've registered it with Microsoft. And that prevents a conflict where somebody tries to add two fields. Because if I were to make another extension, and I were to have more information in the sales header, this would just become a different number. So maybe it become A, S, sorry, F, it is hexadecimal, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this new extension would need quote head, quote those. And maybe this new extension's quote status is 33. It's a number. The two fields are called quote status, but they have this prefix that makes them unique, which prevents them from causing a problem. In the old system, you didn't have this. You could actually see when you were adding a field. You could see the fields that were there. In the new system, you only see this when you're a programmer. You don't see any of this. And so you can't tell if somebody else has added something else. But what it does is it makes it much easier to upgrade in the future because you apply the upgrade from Microsoft, it upgrades this part, and this part just stays what it is. The only time you'll really have a problem in this circumstance is if Microsoft were to change these two fields. They haven't changed these two fields in 30 years, so they're counting on this not changing. What has happened with us is that when this field got created, all of this information was blank because there is no utility for Microsoft, and I've talked to them about it, to copy the information that is in here into here. So we wrote a utility, and our utility went through, and what it did was it checked every row in here and looked for these fields. So it would look for these three fields. And it would have said, okay, I see that A110 quote has a status active. And it would go in here and look for A110 quote, because it should be there, and it would put active in here. Now let's pretend that over here there was a number, RO1020. What it should do is it should check and see if there's a number in here, which there isn't, and put it in here, and then go to the next one and put RO120. For some reason it's missed some, and we don't know why. So there is another way to do it, which is technically faster and likely the way we're going to do it for all customers in the future. And that is to use something called a SQL statement, SQL statement. And that SQL statement, unfortunately, is fairly time-consuming to create, because what we need to do is we need to write a SQL statement that says insert into sales header dollar whatever NO document type pre quotes data, etc. We have to type all that out. And so it takes quite a long time. So we were trying to avoid that by writing a utility that did it. But at the end of the day, it's faster to write it all out than let the utility run, because the utility was causing a problem. So that's what we've done. There are some shortcuts that we can use to try and accelerate this and copy paste and get some information a little bit quicker. And we've done that. And so we have now copied all the information from here using select statements and copied them into here. And nominally that should be fine. If anybody added anything in the Business Central copy from this morning in the last few hours, it may cause a problem. Other than that, everything should be fine. Hopefully this explains and it's clear. The real problem is that we now have a brand new table that has no data. It did not exist in 2016, and we have to move things in here. And if we don't, then users can't access the data. There also seems to be perhaps an issue that we moved the data into it, which we did do, and then we left the extension running, and because the extension was not uninstalled and reinstalled, some sort of synchronization didn't happen. We weren't unaware of that. We uninstalled and reinstalled the extensions, and that seems to have fixed quite a few of the problems people were having. But it still left little holes in the data where the data didn't get copied by our utility. So that's kind of where we are right now. And if this worked, then we'll repeat this on the weekend. That's it. Thank you.